Jennings,
I'm
yeah.
gonna have a meeting at around 9:30. Is there a way to leave a proxy if I get
Oh,
called?
absolutely.
How
You
do you
bet.
want me
You
to do
can
that?
just email me and Miss Bodwin's both is your proxy, and then we've got it. And then, so if I somehow forget, she's got it, and that'd be great.
Mr. Chairman, I can send him a form as well.
That'd be even greater.
We are now live on YouTube.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I think we'll actually get started a minute early. Some miracles do happen. Good morning, members. Good morning, members of the public out there watching on YouTube. We'll start this morning. We first order of business is to take the roll. So, Ms. Bodewins, can you please take the roll?
All right, Mr. Chairman, roll call. Representative Baker.
Here.
Representative Gray.
Here.
Representative Hallinan.
Here.
Here.
Representative Henderson.
Here.
Representative Jennings.
Here.
Representative Roscoe.
He's excused. I don't see him yet, but he'll be joining us, I'm sure.
Representative Sweeney.
Here.
Representative Yin.
Here.
Chairman Harshman.
Here, and we'll just keep that roll open for a few minutes for good Representative Roscoe. And okay, it looks like we have one attendee, the good director now, two, it looks like Mr. Obermiller, and we'll admit you, gentlemen. I see Commissioner Novotny, and appreciate you joining us this morning. And everyone knows here, just a friendly reminder again, if you need to leave or those kind of things, just stop your video, keep your mic on mute, and until you're ready to visit. And I think I can see everybody, but if for some reason, boy, if I somehow can't see you, make sure and give my attention and just butt in if you have to and get my attention, and give each other a little grace on this format. We're all getting better at it, and it won't be long. We'll all be together. And again, all, as we know on revenue, we're gonna have a lot of these conversations, and all of them need to go through the chair. So none of it's personal, and want to speak in a way that brings greatness to all this in this process. So appreciate our attendees being with us today. We just have this one bill. We were just given these, and this is the final one that was sent to us. And the Senate File 45. We went through the explanation part kind of in tandem with 60 members, as you'll remember. And really, if you can pull that bill up, I think we'll just kind of scroll through it pretty quick. And really, the Senate File 45, and we've got attendees here who've been through this process since day one and been on the task force, and the director and everybody else who's put hundreds of hours into this. It's my understanding really just codifies the bill we passed last year and put into session law. And this gets us closer to a monthly payment. It's my understanding. Doesn't quite get us there. We're always a little bit of a lag. So it doesn't line up exactly with severance tax. So it'd be a little different system of collection. But it does at least codify what we put into session law last year. There was one Senate amendment. Looks like it was a Senate either revenue or on the floor by the good revenue chairman over there, which put that placeholder for a cost to make this conversion. It's, I think, the same amendment that's in Senate File 60 as well, the $1 appropriation from the LSRA. So with that, as there, and I'm just kind of scrolling through it here while I'm visiting, is there any members? I guess I would just open it up here. Are there any conversation, or maybe I ask the good director to I'd like to hear his comments on it and maybe some of the history with it. And then we'll take public comment and try to get all our questions answered. Good morning, Director.
Morning, Mr. Shumrin, members of the committee. Dan Knoll, Director of the Department of Revenue. Senate File 45 and Senate File 60 are both mechanisms to move the industry, the mineral industry and mineral production towards the monthly payment of ad valorem taxes on mineral production. Senate File 45 actually does this by phasing it in first. They go from making payment in November and May to dividing those up to where there's 2 payments in November, then it goes to 3, and then 4, 5, and then you eventually get to where it is monthly. Then you get an additional 1 month or one month's worth of distribution over the next 12 years that ultimately moves us to exactly where the ad valorem and the severance tax align with each other. So that's the process. What Senate File 45 does is it puts in place in statute the actual transition that was memorialized in session law in House Bill 159. It also does another thing. It defines who is responsible for the collection of this tax. And I believe in 2023, that becomes the Department of Revenue. It's currently on the counties that do it. And it also provides some penalty provision for failure to follow the what's been memorialized in statutes in this bill. Obviously, the purpose of this was to provide a certainty as to when, when there was an actual tax liability. The concern was raised that under the current structure for ad valorem taxes that there was not a mechanism to know upfront when a company was going to be delinquent, and some bankruptcies created some real concern from the counties because these were fairly substantial bankruptcies, and there was quite a bit of money lost through the bankruptcies. They wanted to be able to place these liens should there be a problem on roughly the same schedule as we do for mineral severance taxes, and that was one of the mechanisms to do that, was to move this onto the same schedule to where these taxes are due sooner, if you will. I think the bill itself is relatively simple. It ultimately moves towards the monthly payment of ad valorem taxes on mineral production. With that, I'll certainly stand for any questions that you may have. If there's some further background that you need, I'll certainly share what I can.
Director, I just real quick, I had one while you were, and I don't know, but I've heard basically in my conversation with you and senators that maybe some of the estimates that this was maybe a more expensive bill to implement for your department as opposed to 60, that Senate File 60. And maybe you can share with us why that is, why more expensive with this bill.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. The Senate File 45 basically requires us to essentially create 2 tax systems. The ad valorem taxes that we're talking about here are actually assessed by the county. That will have to be loaded into our system as well, and we'll be collecting severance tax on a certain schedule, and then we'll be collecting ad valorem taxes on a different schedule for the next 15 to 20 years. And then once they align, then we're basically operating under what we would consider Senate File 60. But that takes years to happen. So we're actually going to ask the mineral tax system to collect severance on one schedule and ad valorem tax on another schedule until those 2 actually marry, if you will, in about at least 12 and a half years, and probably more like 15. So because of the fact that you're actually creating a separate system to collect this tax, you're going to end up having much more involved programming to get the system in place. When you're looking at it on Senate File 60, the reason it's less expensive is because you're immediately going to the exact same schedule for collecting the severance tax that you do, and ad valorem tax. It's on the exact same values. The production value that we use to calculate severance tax will be the exact same value that we use to calculate the ad valorem tax. That makes it much simpler. It's one system instead of two, and it makes it much easier to implement.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions for the director? Sorry to butt in there, but I got to ask these or I forget them. So, members, any questions of the good director? Well, Director, I know you. Okay, Vice Chair Henderson has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director, for your update and overview. Your last point, we also heard concerns, at least from one county, about being made whole. Is that perhaps the reason for that concern in terms of the different values? I mean, you said the last one, they use the same values, and in the bill, it says that the rate will be as per the county mills established. Is that the difference? What's the concern about being made whole? Do you know?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Henderson, I think that the issue is when you're looking at Senate File 60, there is still, I believe, a year and a half worth of production that is based on an old mill levy. Okay, the previous year and a half's worth of production is not going to be paid on the same schedule as we do when we move to monthly payment. So there is a portion of that tax that is not going to be paid until 12 and a half years out. Okay, and what the concern is, where are they going to get the funds to pay off that previous year's production, year and a half's worth of production, to pay the special districts, to make the county whole, to make the municipalities whole, and the school foundation fund. That's why there's a loan provision in the previous in Senate File 60 to accomplish that very purpose. It's not necessarily system issues as much as it is the making the counties whole as it relates to differences in cash flow to pay off that previous year's mill levies and make the districts and the counties whole.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Representative Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So do you have an update on costs for the systems, both Senate File 60 and 45?
Director.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Sweeney, I do. I've received yesterday afternoon and I got to tell you that these are probably a little high, and the reason for that is because they don't have everything they need to actually make a really good estimate of what this is going to cost. The estimates came in at $689,000 for Senate File 60, and I believe $1.183 million for Senate File 45. We have some funding left over from the previous year's bill, I believe $27,000 there, and I have about $150,000 to $200,000 in our maintenance agreement, and I think we can probably get close to where we need to be. And on top of that, we'll hopefully be able to make if we deal with Senate File 60, I think we'll probably hope to achieve some savings there by not having to do another form or anything like that. It'll be done on the same form. So hopefully we can get it a little less expensive than that. But I asked not only what it would take, but also the time frame to get it in place. I think we can probably meet these deadlines for both bills. 2023 is for, I believe, Senate File 45, and January of 2022, I think we can make it happen.
Okay, very good. I think, Director, I appreciate that question by Representative Sweeney, because, and I think Representative Gray too had that, that we had a pretty substantial talk in the House yesterday about who pays, how we pay, and it's a real legitimate question. I've got an amendment on third reading today to try to kind of forge a little ground on that. I haven't filed it because I'm I'm sitting here thinking, well, what if we just left you $1
Mhm.
and you've got an estimate for 600,000, a rough estimate, as you said. I mean, it's real preliminary and rough. It's probably not going to go any higher than that. Certainly it'd be lower. Yeah. Okay. So I'm reading your body language on the Zoom. And so, I mean, if we did nothing and if you came up, and we had to make up another 100 grand next year to make you kind of whole or something, you think, I mean, I know the governor can be 11 a little bit if he needed to, for a 3-month period to get your bills paid to the programmer, that kind of thing. Any thoughts on that? I mean, or if not, I mean, I got an amendment and we could spend an hour of our life today talking about it. So
Mr. Chairman, I think my concern with that is I'm going to have to get a contract in place with the company that will be doing this. And in order to get that contract in place, I probably have to have the funds available to make it happen. I've got some funds in 900 series from leftovers, as well as in 200 series for maintenance that I think I can utilize, but that only gets me about a third the way there. I'm going to need some funding to deal with this, and I mean, I'd love to think we could do this for free, but the fact is, it's not going to be free at all. And I think that cost probably needs to be recognized in some way, shape, or form, I think.
And we're talking, Mr. Director, we're talking, I don't know, mineral ad valorem. I think that little handout I sent yesterday, approaching $500 million a year.
Mhm.
And so my little amendment is really to take some of that. I'll just tell members what I was trying to think is I was working off a $300,000 number in my head because, we'd left messages to each other yesterday. You didn't get that. And so I was working off that number, and I knew there was like 27,000 from last year's appropriation for that lodging tax bill and some of that work.
Mhm.
And so I just took it out of the current bill alone, frankly, for local governments. And that's where I was going to take it out to it, like 274,000 to equal 300,000.
Mhm.
I guess if I go ahead and file that, I mean, if you add the ability for that 300,000, 274 and the 27 leftover, you might have enough then as well with some other maintenance funds to get a contract in place.
We can certainly try to make that happen, Mr. Chairman.
You could update our committee, I guess, how the thing's going in the interim and keep it on our radar. So well, I'll probably members, I don't know, we can talk about it some more, but maybe I'll push the send button to get that thing filed. I don't know. We'll talk some more, I guess. Been kind of sleeping on it, I guess. Okay, enough of my questions. Any other questions, members of the director? Okay, and then I'd like to move. Okay, Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So actually a question to you. I just want to understand the amendment some more that you're looking at. Are you saying it's a $270,000 from what? What's the source on that?
So Representative Gray, so the bill now has the appropriation to the State Department of Education, so the superintendent can work out all that school funding, because there's going to be that drop when we go to month. They won't have that one big check next spring. And so we've got to bridge that lower payment period for cash flow is how I understand it. But there's that loan provision for the counties to get in line and get a loan for their 11.8 mils plus the special districts, community colleges, et cetera, because they got to pay them the property tax payment. And they just won't have enough money with a January, February payment, just 2/12 of a payment instead of basically a 1/6 of a payment in April. And it's how I kind of understand it. So, or a 50% payment in April. Out of that loan, I think it's 17 million in the bill. I don't have that bill in front of me, but I think that's what it was. I just took 274 out of that, lowered that loan amount, and appropriated that to the Department of Revenue. And again, I don't have it in front of me, but it seems like it's 26,000 is the number I have in my head that's left over from the bill last year. and reappropriate that to equal 300,000 is what I was shooting for, Representative Gray. So, yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'd like to open up any of our attendees. I see Commissioner Novotny. And thank you, Director. And I see Mr. Obermuller and Mr. Detai. Thanks for joining us. Whoever wants to go first, if you have any comments, we'd sure appreciate it. Any education for us on this, any history for us, or your preferences, those kind of things. So, Commissioner, why don't you go first? Thank you.
Thank
You get a little
Mr.
snow up there? You get some snow in Buffalo?
Mr. Chairman, we did about 2 inches, and so our road and bridge crew actually had to get the plows out this morning. So,
Oh, yeah.
it's nice to actually have winter up here. But good morning, committee. Bill Novotny with the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. Our executive director, Jeremiah Riemann, is before another committee, so you get the B team this morning. It is remaining the position of the County Commissioners Association that we'd like to see you to move this bill forward to allow the Senate Majority Leader to keep it in his drawer and only pull it out if we got into a situation where a conference report on Senate File 60 sank or we ran into a problem and couldn't get it across the finish line. We do appreciate the good chairman's work on finding the dollars to get the software that the department needs. It's our feeling that if we rattle around in some of the coffee cans around over there, we probably can find those dollars and not have any impact on industry or the counties and allow the very smooth, methodical transition to monthly payments. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I don't think we need to belabor any of the stuff that we talked about on Tuesday pertaining to Senate File 60. So I'd stand for questions. Thank you.
Members, any questions of the good Commissioner, Johnson County? You know, members, I'm going to digress a little bit, but Buffalo, of course, one of the gems of Wyoming. And you know that city pool, I think, was built by the CCCs or the WPA, and Clear Creek used to run right through it. I remember when I was a kid, it was just gravel bottom, dark, and it was just cold creek water running through there. Now, of course, had to put a bottom in it and paint it white and all that. But that's quite a landmark in Wyoming. A lot of history there. But
It is, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And we're proud to say that that is a free city pool and will remain that way as long as local government is able to do that. So
all of us
thanks.
campers in the Bighorns have made that a stop on the way back, certainly. Yeah, very good. Okay, well, thank you. Any questions then for good Commissioner? Okay, I'll move to Mr. Obermuller.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Pete Obermuller, Petroleum Association of Wyoming. Just a couple of comments, Mr. Chairman. I'm reminded, talking about 45 and 60 and the old version and all that, a famous quote from Thomas Sowell that there are no solutions, only trade-offs. And each of these options we've had discussed have trade-offs. The old system allowed the schools and the counties and the cities and everyone who received revenue from ad valorem to budget off of dollars in hand. They knew what they had and they could budget off of that. The train has left the station that we've decided that the negatives associated with bankruptcies is too much of a trade-off for that. So that train has left the station and we're left with what we did in House Bill 159 last year, and then what we have before us this year in fixing it in 45 and then also moving to a different one in Senate File 60. 45, Mr. Chairman, that you have before you this morning, you are right. It's a slower, and Director Noble's right, it's a slower rollout. But the reason why we did that was really because 45 avoids this whole issue of at least for a while of the back payments. It does a slow rollout of month to month and then shifts back 1 month at a time into the previous calendar year. And that allowed everyone to avoid this whole issue of how do we deal with these back payments. It kicks that can down the road to 2027 when half of the payments will already have been made without having to have this big back payment. then it didn't get all the way there, because in 2027, when you hit that particular cliff, which I don't need to go into, but can if you want, that would force all of us to make the decision at that point on a smaller number about what to do with it. So there was some method to that madness, and that's the trade-off, is we don't get quite there. We don't have this deal with the back payments and the bridge loans and all that kind of stuff under 45. It's just that it only gets us halfway to the month-to-month solution. So that's the trade-off. 60 gets us right to the policy of monthly payments tied to severance, estimated monthly payments, and then when we get to the end of the year, we reconcile those payments and all of that. So the trade-off of that, of course, is this gap created by when we switch to monthly, that there is a 2-month gap there for local government. And then to Representative Henderson's point, depending on the totals of ad valorem from the year that we're paying monthly and the part that's in the bucket of the back payments, there could be a discrepancy there depending on production. So that's the trade-off there, and this is why at this point, industry is basically comfortable with all of them, as ensuring that and we get to the implementation stage, that we work with Director Noble, and we're confident we can do this, that reporting is streamlined, that we're not doing giant ad valorem reports every month and that kind of stuff that happens once a year, that counties recognize that the monthly payments are estimated and that we will true it up at the end, and that there's no penalties attached to that. That kind of thing. That's all in the implementation stage that we're confident in. So essentially, we're okay with whatever you choose, and this is why you all are paid the big bucks and get all the public accolades.
Yeah. Sure appreciate that. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Obermiller? No, I just had, well, you said something I wrote. You said it really only gets us halfway there. And can you just kind of put that at the Wall Street Journal level for us?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So the ultimate goal is, of course, was closing that gap from production to ad valorem payments all the way down to as close as we could get it, which is 2 months. That's what SF60 does, is you will take our production from January and we'll pay the ad valorem tax in March from the January production. That's as close as we could get it, because you need a little bit of time to know what you produced and attach the value to it and all that stuff. So 2-month gap. The SF60 does that immediately starting in 2022. What 45 does is it starts out, just sort of kind of get everybody used to separating those payments. It starts out just separating them like Dr. Noble said. But then you recall under the old system, it's half in November and half in May. Once we've spread those all out monthly, then what 45 does is it takes 1/6 of that second half and it moves 1/6 into the previous calendar year. So now you're not paying half, you're paying just over half and a little under half over here. And then the next year it moves 1/6 back again. It keeps doing that until you hit this cliff, which is where you can't continue to do that without having to not only have estimated mill levies, but estimated valuation. And that's sort of the red line that none of us want to hit, is when we're estimating value instead of paying taxes on the value we know. So that we could do that rollback all the way until 2027. And current law, that SF45 doesn't change. Current law basically has a trigger in 2027 when we'll all be back, hopefully not here, but in person. We would have to make this decision about what to do in 2027. The benefit of that was that we'd be talking about smaller numbers at that point, not as big of a bucket for back payments. But it couldn't ever get there on its own without further decisions by the legislature.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Questions, members? Questions? And then, just a question. I guess Representative Roscoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pete, I was just wondering, when you say estimates, Are these estimates based on, last month's production or the severance tax, or what are these? How do you come up with these estimates or the tax? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Obermiller?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Representative Roscoe, yeah, so normally, just going back to the old system where it's already gone, what happens is and this is for every property tax, the county, the process for the county establishing its mill levy rate takes basically 9 months. So they don't set the actual mill levy rate until August and then send it in September. And that's why, so this year, and we'll just take this year as an example, we're in 2021, they were working on that mill levy rate and process and certifying it and all that stuff. It's a complicated process. That gets done in August, and then they would send the bill for 2020 production. So we'd have the 2020 production value, and then we'd have the 2021 mill levy rate set in September. So that's why there was a delay. When we move to monthly and we start paying before the mill levy rate is set, we're paying then on an estimated tax. So what current law does, and what HB 159 and also SF 60 does is, we start paying monthly. We're going to be paying off of the value that we know, but we're paying on the mill levy rate from the previous year. Now, mill levy rates don't change all that much. They don't fluctuate a lot, but they do fluctuate. So we'll pay on that. That's why it's estimated, because we're not estimating our value. We're estimating the mill levy rate. We'll pay on that monthly until the mill levy rate is set. And then we have to have a true up period that actually says, well, is 2021's mill levy rate the same or not? And if our mill levy rate is higher, we owe more taxes, then we'll have to pay that. If we owe less taxes, the counties will have to pay that back to my members. So that's, does that make sense, Representative Roscoe? There's sort of estimating the mill levy rate is okay, doable, not awesome. Estimating valuation, we don't want to cross that line.
That's so kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Obermiller? Just real quick, other states like Wyoming that are energy producing states. I see, 60 is moving, you're lining up severance and ad valorem. I think that would be super easy for your members. Easier than going through two different processes. Really, it's the same process. And I think other states kind of do it that way. It seems like we're kind of unique the way we have a couple different mineral taxation plans. Any comments on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you're right. Other states already do have them matched up. Every state's got weird idiosyncrasies, but other states do have it matched up. And yeah, there's a lot of support in my membership for paying monthly. There really always has been. There's a lot to be said for paying monthly. The only way, there were the two things we had to work out. There was, how do we deal with the back payments? And we figured that out in both 45 and 60. We figured that out, at least partway in 45. The other kind of the big thing for us, and again, it's in the implementation stage, is making sure that we're just working hand in glove with Director Noble and the counties, that the reporting requirements are streamlined and matched, because there's the payment, but there's the reporting. And we need all of that to be seamless. And so working with Director Noble is going to be key to make it work for either bill.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay, thank you. And I'm going to move to Mr. Deti. He's got the coolest initials on the screen, TD.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, I'm easy today. I really don't have anything to add. Our position remains the same. We're comfortable with both bills. We'd like to see them both go through, and would just reiterate what I said to the committee a couple of days ago. What's going to be critical, I think, for this is cooperation between the counties and the state, and making sure the taxpayer knows what to pay and when to pay it. There's a lot of moving parts here. There's going to be a lot of, timing shifts regardless of which bill passes. The operator needs to know what they need to pay and when they need to pay it. So it's critical to get those notices out. And Mr. Chairman, that's all I have to add to the discussion today.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, members? Okay, appreciate you gentlemen joining us. Okay, members, any other questions? Do you have any other questions of the director before we take action on this bill? No other public comment, Ms. Bodewins? Nobody else has signed up?
Mr. Chairman, there's no other attendees that aren't already in the meeting.
Okay. Okay, members, what's your pleasure?
Move the bill.
Okay, it's been
I'll
moved
second.
by Vice Chair Henderson, seconded by Representative Sweeney. Okay, members. Let's just scroll through the bill, and if you have any amendments, and I've got it in front of me now, and I'm just scrolling, so you might have to interrupt me if you have. I keep checking screens, but on page 1, and I'm moving to page 2. Okay, and then moving to page 3. Okay, page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Okay, page 7.
Mr. Chairman,
Who, okay, Representative Baker.
I'm just wondering what the plan is as far as addressing section 3 of the bill.
It's a good question. I think in members, what I wrote down was 1.8 million was the estimation to come in and reprogram and get and the director, I'd like you to, if you could, just join us and update us on that if I said that wrong.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that it's 1.18.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so, and the same thing applies. I actually have some money in maintenance, so we could lower that probably by a couple $100,000, and then the 27,000 that's left over, so you could actually adjust it by what the math comes out on that.
Okay. Okay, very good. So that's the number. So you could probably knock about 200 off of that 1.18. So appropriate number would be 875, 900, somewhere in there. If anybody wants to take a crack at that $1. Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we have to face the fact that this isn't going to be free to set this up. And I heard that there's some opportunities for fiscal synergy in terms of going with the SF60, but I think we need to at least, in full disclosure, we need to at least start with something. And I would make a motion that we amend that $1 to 800,000.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, seconded by Representative Sweeney. Discussion then on the amendment? Okay, Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I don't want to belabor this. I think I've kind of made my position clear on this, but I'm definitely going to be a no on this. I think the counties need to cover this. I think that's what's appropriate. They used to collect this tax, and I think they should pay for the collection costs now that this is being transferred to the state, this duty, and I'm very passionate about that. And so I'm a definite no on this and no on the bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm going to vote for this, but I just to kick this out for the education piece for members so they can see the numbers. My first concern I thought was, geez, I don't want to affect the goldenrod by putting 800 grand out there. That's probably not, might very well not happen. But that wouldn't happen unless it passed committee of the whole. And so our action on that, I think. So anyway, I'll probably support that just so we know what that number is. I wrote down the wrong number. I had 1.8. At least we got it out there. We kind of know what the number is. My amendment will be 274. I bring that forward on the other bill. So we can at least the body can see those numbers. I think is good. Okay, thanks. Representative Jennings.
Mr. Chairman, I too am going to be a no on this. I've fought this for 5-6 years. I think there's other ways that we could have and should have, and I just don't think this is the right answer. Mr. Chairman, I leave a proxy with you. I need to leave for a few minutes.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the amendment? Representative Sweeney.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you on that was one of my thoughts before I seconded the 800,000 was, what's the effect going to be to the goldenrod? But you've got a good point. My belief is 60 is the one that we're going to end up having a conference committee on and moving that forward. Do you think it's, in your opinion, you've been around this a lot longer, are we better off leaving this particular bill at $1, in your opinion? And we can still educate the body. I'm not saying that, but.
Yeah, since you asked me, I don't think it probably matters what we do, whether it's $1 or whether we put the 800. It won't affect the profile. That's my first concern. But I wasn't going to even touch it, and then the amendment came, and then I think what the good vice chair said, it kind of educates the members. So yeah, 6 1, half dozen another, I guess. I'm not going to lose any sleep over this deal if it doesn't, if it doesn't go. Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree. We could sugarcoat this. There is a lot of validity in all the comments that have been mentioned regarding the interaction between the counties and the department and the cost, who bears the cost in any case. But all of us, everyone in Wyoming, have benefited and will continue to benefit by doing what we can to get this sector up off its knees in terms of the education, but all the other things. So I think we need to be going into this with our eyes open and work together for the right reasons, for the right outcome. So I'd urge support for this.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, I think we're ready to vote. I'm sorry, I missed Doc Hallinan. You got your hand up there. I see it now. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for you. It's a parliamentary question. Would it be possible just to lay this bill back for the committee to deal with at another time if they want to, and just let us go through with Senate File 60 at this point?
Representative Hallinan, I think you and I are on an ESP link, and I'm sitting there thinking I'm about ready to just pull the plug on this and put it in the drawer. But members, I wanted, frankly, I was going to do that. I thought of doing that and not even holding this meeting, but I wanted to hold this meeting because I told you we ran out of time on Tuesday, and I wanted to give us a fair hearing on this deal and do it and kind of get everybody's input. We certainly could. We could take a motion to table, lay this thing back. It doesn't kill the bill. I think that's what industry, we heard from our attendees today, that they want to keep this horse in the race because, none of us can predict what will happen to legislation. That 60 you just never know, might get vetoed. Who knows what could happen. And so they wanted to keep this alive. And I guess it still would be alive, Representative Hallinan. So absolutely, we certainly could. You bet. Representative Sweeney?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the committee. I think it's pretty obvious industry has gotten behind and negotiated and come terms with both of these, and they and the counties are asking for keep both in the game. I agree we could table it, but I'm of the opinion we should try to move forward and get it out there. We're not doing committee of the whole, but anyway.
Okay, we've got a motion on the table now on this amendment, so let's get back on that. Any further discussion on the motion? Motion is for that 800,000.
Question.
Question being called. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. One, two, three in favor. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, and I think 4. And Representative Jennings left a no vote. That is 5. So that motion has failed. Okay, any further motions on the bill? And I think we all know the number now. With a little bit of what's out there, we could probably 800,000, 850, somewhere in there's a number. So we're all educated on that. I think Representative Baker and then Representative Hallinan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would make that motion to lay the bill back. I think it's appropriate. We have plenty of time to bring this bill back alive and further the discussion in March, if that's what we choose to do. I think that proceeding and moving this bill forward, I think really confuses the public. And I think as a legislature, I think I don't know, my opinion, I feel it's a little bit sloppy because I know that at any time, you know, Senate File 60 can be resurrected, rules can be amended, we can suspend rules. I've seen it happen. I've seen bills, you know, proceed through the process, prior to cross through, do all sorts of things. So I think that, you know, I'm comfortable setting this bill back and feeling that, you know, at any time it can be resurrected in any committee meeting with the chairman's prerogative. So I would really, you know, I think it's good for us to have the discussion. I appreciate this meeting right now. I do appreciate the opportunity to have the discussion about the differences of the bills, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. And then Representative Hallinan and then Representative Roscoe.
Mr. Chairman, I would just second the motion that Representative Baker made. It seems to me that we've got a bill that has viability. It's already passed on committee of the whole on this very same subject. So I think that we ought to leave this bill aside and then deal with it if it becomes necessary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker or Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and so I just want to be clear because did Representative Baker, did you make a motion to lay on the table?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Is that the exact motion?
That is a motion, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Hallinan, you seconded that.
Seconded.
And the motion to lay on the table then takes precedence over all other motions, and it is not debatable. And I see the good Representative Roscoe has his hand up. And so no debate on this motion, but do you have a question, Representative Roscoe?
No, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I won't interfere with that.
Okay, so we have a motion to lay on the table. And I think for the public watching and for our attendees who put a lot of work into this, this is by no means killing the bill. It's just, we're going to set it right here and watch the other one go forward. And if something happens, we've still got this bill. So it's not killed by any means. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. All those in favor of the motion to lay on the table, please raise your hand. Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, all those opposed. Okay, and I probably don't have a proxy vote on this motion by Representative Jennings. That motion has been adopted. So we'll lay Senate File 45 on the table. As a lot of times chairman will call it, put it in my drawer. And so it's still in our committee's possession. It's not going anywhere, and we can reschedule this at any time when we're together in our meetings again. Okay. Is there any other business that we need to do before the committee? Any comments, anything? Okay, appreciate all your good work, and we'll see you in about 10 more minutes. Okay, thank you, members. Thank you, Ms. Bodewins.